Hello and welcome to another Miraculous Beings episode. I'm your host and self awareness coach Shweta Shivraman, and this is a series where we observe, learn from others' life journeys, others who I believe epitomize being miraculous in its true spirit, individuals who've worked hard to get where they are, who love what they do, and are really passionate about living life to the fullest. Today's speaker is Parmita Shroff. Parmita is a certified raw vegan food chef from Sayuri Healing Foods, Ubud, and has successfully completed a postgraduate diploma in yogic sciences from ICYHC, Kaivalyadam, Bombay. Founder to Prana Kitchen, she serves plant-based whole foods and is located at the Wellness Center in Prism Healing Institute. She has completed over 90 plus hours training in Mysore style Ashtanga Yoga with Bharat Shetty, Indie Yoga, and is a frequent visitor at the Vipassana retreat. She is also a certified sound healer who loves to use different avenues of energy medicine and often conducts sound healing sessions. She's also completed a 10-day intensive Iyengar style yoga course with Sharat Arora in Dharamshala. A part-time raw vegan chef and a full-time yogi, this 29-year-old, born and brought up in Bombay, was an ex-investment banker and changed her career paths post-volunteering at a permaculture farm in Auroville. Her practice and style of teaching is deeply rooted from her teachings of Vipassana. Yoga has been her roots and is a subject in her school curriculum from a very young age. She would meditate at the Ramana Maharshi Ashram in Tiruvannamalai and Maitri Mandir, Pondicherry. She is passionate about educating and creating awareness on how to lead a life with harmony in Mother Nature, which is reflected in her work at Prana Kitchen. She believes true yoga begins the moment you step off the mat, as it is a way of life. I'm so happy to have you here, Parmita. Let's get started. Hello, Parmita. Thank you so much for being a part of the Miraculous Beings show. It's so nice to have you here.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm so excited to be here, Shweta. And thank you for having me here.
Yeah, and I was just doing your introduction and I'm already so excited. I mean, raw food chef, full-time yogini. But I would love for you to share your story with the audience before we go deeper in. So if you
Yeah.
could.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll just keep it short. It's been a lot of U-turns, a lot of detours, a lot of aha moments. But I think through and through, it's just been a journey into wellness. And when I say journey, it's definitely not a destination. So I'm excited for this conversation. But that being said, I don't have it all figured out yet. And I don't think that's the intention that I have for myself either through this process. I think it's just beautiful just seeing different aspects of my being unfolded through different experiences. But yeah, I studied finance and then I took an investment job. So I was working at an investment bank in Bombay City, a very fast-paced lifestyle as we were discussing earlier. And I think that just caught on to me. I think at some point, very earlier on in my career, I realized this is not something I wanted to sign up for apart from a hefty paycheck. I was very miserable. And I think that's when my mom sort of guided me to explore and try other avenues of not just income generation, but also trying to see what other things bring me joy or fulfill me on an emotional, mental, financial, spiritual level. And really grateful that she has this space. Prism Healing Institute, which is what I call my playground. It was almost like a blank canvas and gave me whatever colors I wanted to choose and color out of the box as well. So I think I'm really grateful for that experimentation and parents who were very supportive, my dad and my mom, who allowed me to just color outside and see what the journey ahead lies. So I quit investment banking with a friend of mine, Malvika, who was a corporate lawyer. And it's always nice having association, and I'm sure we're going to dabble a bit about association, sangha, community, tribe. And I think at that point, just even having that one person on your path with you definitely gives you that much more courage to make these bold decisions like quit a corporate career or a financially stable option and just dive into the unknown. So we both set out to actually start a restaurant. And then as the universe had it, we actually through the process decided maybe we should take on a diploma in yogic sciences. So we did a 1-year diploma course from Kaivalyadam, and organically through that we got into sound. So we also became certified sound teachers and sound healers. And The journey for food actually began organically before my investment banking career. I volunteered on a farm in Pondicherry called Solitude Farm before taking on this job. And at that time, I didn't think I had any inclination to be a chef or even get into the food um, business as such. I just wanted to have a me time, and the green spaces always call me. So that's the reason why I decided to volunteer on a farm. And when I came back and when I started this corporate profession career, I realized that's what I was missing, the simplicity of that lifestyle that I'd experienced on the farm life, eating whole foods and just eating with my hands, seeing the laborious efforts and being participating in that, whether it's harvesting, whether it's spreading awareness, whether it's packaging. And I think that's when I realized like that's what really fills my cup. Living in a big city, so disconnected from nature, don't know where our food comes from, a certain sense of entitlement. You just walk into a grocery store and you think you can just buy this because you can pay that price. So complete disconnection with the land, with what it had to offer. And I think that's where the medicine lies. That's where the miracles happen. That's where that energy exchange, which is um it's experiential. People who've tasted it, felt it, they just know there's something so powerful about it. And I think that was my initiation into wellness, or I would say into plant medicine, food just being one of those extensions. And fast forward later, I decided to, after doing a diploma in yogic sciences, also dabbled in food, decided to do a chef training in Bali. And I think ever since it's just been a journey into discovering myself. I think food being an extension, you are what you eat, as Buddha says. And I do feel that just made me more conscious of all kinds of consumption, not just food being a metaphor for everything I consume energetically through my mind, my body, words, thoughts, association. And I think by questioning what's on my plate, it led to the bigger questions of what's on my heart mind, which is sort of the purpose of yoga, to question and also notice when your chitta, your heart mind is in that state of fluctuation. So I think, yeah, I think this journey has been very insightful to say the least, but at the same time, also very fulfilling. I think it allows you to experience moments of deep santosha and deep contentment. And that's why you continue doing what you're doing, I guess, And now I'm just on this place where I like to share and spread awareness about plant food, because I think that's we all in a city like ours need some form of healing, whether we are having a disease or not. There is disharmony just by virtue of living in such a overly stimulated environment and structure. And I think that's where food plays a vital role. And like I said, energy medicine as well. So yoga, sound baths is something that now I like offering and sharing space with, and over the years created a community, and that's how we met.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm grateful for that. And thank you so much for walking us through, right? Like that's like not just a 360-degree turn, right? From investment banking to yoga, food, sound healing, and like you rightly said, right, it's still a journey, it's still unfolding. And that's one of the things that we really love about the show as well. So in Miraculous Beings, we say that we take pride in interviewing work in progress humans, right? That until we reach the really end, all of us are always going to be improving, evolving, and changing. And it's really about how can we be conscious through that change, right? As it's unfolding, can we really be present to it, to what's happening around us, within us, as it's happening, right? And one of the things that really stood out to me is what you said was that there is always this fluctuations in the chitta, right? And I'm sure through all of these times, while there is that santosha or that fulfillment that is there on an overall basis, I'm sure there are also low movement moments where you question everything. Probably there are these existential questions that come in, and like a wave or a tsunami hit us, right? So how have those moments been for you, and what has really helped you navigate? Because transformation is not always pleasant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think that's a very pertinent question. And I feel, even when I say I'm on this path and on this journey, a lot of people just assume by virtue of me being on this side of it, like a facilitator or a healer or a space holder or whatever you want to call me, that, oh, you've achieved it, so how can you share knowledge about it? And while I'm like, no, like, there are still moments where fear takes the better of me. There are still moments where I just don't know. I have zero clarity. I don't have any wisdom or any knowledge to share. But I'll just share a couple of things that probably have helped me. One, definitely the most fundamental practice being that of Vipassana. I think that has been life transformative for me. Um, Not just the SN Goenka style, but another lineage by Patrick Kearney. He's an Australian teacher, and he comes down here to Kodaikanal at Bodhi Zendo, a Buddhist training retreat in Kodaikanal, south of India. So those really helped me just cultivating Vipassana, tracking your awareness in real time. So I think it's a silent camp. And I think over the years, I think I've probably attended now around 8 to 10. I've lost track. But each time it's come back just watering newer seeds and realizing that, at the end of it, everything is in a constant state of flux or change, and everything is temporary. And how SN Goenka normally says, anicca, that there is nothing permanent. And I feel that's where the lesson lies, but also the problem lies, because all we ever know of life, and I think all we ever taught from a very young age is to get out of our bodies and get into our mind, the schooling, education, everything. How are you uniquely different? Associate with your name. So there's so much ego creation, there's so much identity creation and then I reach that point when there's suffering and I'm like, who am I? And who is suffering? And what is suffering? And I try asking myself those bigger questions, but I'm so baffled because all I know of my reality is through this little lens of I am Parmita, and then all the associations that come with that. And I think Vipassana allowed me to sort of like walk out from the subject object relationship and come into the observer mode, and just observe, just like a child is playing with a toy and it's so absorbed by the toy, and there's a mother who's just watching, just playing witness. So I feel allows me to come into that. And while, yeah, I'm not perfect, there'll still be moments where emotions will throw me off balance, but I think the practice of that, of cultivating that habit of constantly cultivating nishpan bhav or detached observation over a period, it's like Krishna Das says, it's like weight training. It's not like the storm won't hit you, it will, but the duration of the storm will be much lesser. So you'll be able to experience anger, you'll be able to experience jealousy or whatever emotions life has to throw at you, but the grip it has on you is much lesser. And I think even in yogic philosophy, that we're all bound by the kleshas, they're all afflictions. And Abhinivesh being the most prominent, fear of death or clingingness to life, which comes from our rag and dveshas, our attachments and, dislike, things that we don't like. And, oh, this is what I love. Because if I ask you, Shweta, what do you like? Who are you? You'll probably describe yourself in things you like and or things you do not like. Like, how else do you describe yourself? You introduce me as a yoga teacher, a raw vegan chef, a pet mom. All of this is things that I like to associate myself with, right? So I think at the heart of it, definitely cultivating that. So any form of meditation practice might help. But for me, Vipassana was a huge part of the practice, and being exposed to it at a very young age. I think that, again, was very pivotal. I did experience loss and death at a very young age. I lost my brother at 19. So I feel that, again, was a gateway, I think. And today, I think I'm able to share this gift of life, or like, that's what I feel Prana tries to spread or share is, how do we live radiantly alive? How do we celebrate life? And how do we tap into our highest self? So I think I only understood that when I could understand what death is. So they're flip sides of the same coin. And having that exposure at a young age to practices like Vipassana, I was also fortunate that my parents gave me a lot of exposure to international festivals, whether it's Bali Spirit Festival, whether it was Rishikesh, the International Yoga Festival. So a lot of exposure to different tools. So I would again say, if you don't know where to start, always nice to just sign up for something that's happening that sounds interesting. You may not be 100% yes about it, but even just you showing up at that class or at that practice, meditation, art, whatever form of creative expression, again, it's a tool, whether it's dance, whether it's movement based, whether it's stillness based, definitely helps to anchor yourself. So I think any practice eventually, I think that allows you to just switch off the mind and come into your body. Because I think from a young age, the conditioning has been to get into your mind. How can you think different? How can you, think apart? How do you create a sense of how are you better than the rest? And I think, in a certain sense, when we drop our awareness into the body, into the feeling body, it's already there. We don't really have to do anything new, anything extraordinary. And I think, in that sense, that peaceful resignation allows you to deal with stressful situations from a more detached lens. And I think that's what helps me anchor myself. So, Vipassana and any other activities, working with my hands, particularly. So, farming, volunteering at a permaculture farm. We have a lot of minor chakras in our farms, and no doubt, kids, when we're kids, have very intuitive and very smart. So, they clap, they scream, they let it out. And it's the same tools for us. We just feel like we're adulting and more mature by being more stoic or being more well gathered, but actually we're cutting off our tools to release, cutting off our tools to come back, recalibrate, come back to equilibrium. So, and I think that's where our moon circles, come in, because I think, just like the moon, we all have phases, we all have tides. It's never going to be full, it's never going to be completely dark. That there are going to be these cycles and phases, and having a community of people who kind of commit to their well-being and check in, periodically, allows you to feel safe and let it out, whether that's through tears, whether that's dance, movement, connecting in nature, again, biggest healer. So hugging trees, trekking mountains, swimming in the oceans, whatever is accessible, I would say, to a certain point. But yeah, Vipassana, connecting with nature, working with your hands and movement, are, I would say, my biggest tools to ground myself.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I love how you said that, tracking and having that awareness in real time, right? I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Like when we are doing yoga, or, we are on the mat and we're so mindful and we're just so present. The minute we're off the mat and outside the shala, everything is gone, like the one traffic con and you're back to, swearing. So, it's really about how do you keep that awareness? Because I remember in Kaivaliram also one of the teachers saying that, yoga is 24/7. It's not that 60 minutes that you do on the mat. And I know you also have a strong view on how yoga is a way of life. Anything you want to share on how do you really keep that awareness on a regular basis?
Yeah. So, sure. I absolutely agree. Yoga is a lifestyle. And I think the more you come into harmony, you actually just dwell in that space of love. And you come from that space of love, and love not just being an act or a gesture, but just everything you say, everything you do. How can I be more sensitive of my environment? How can I live a more compassionate lifestyle? How can I lead gracefully? How can I keep the intentions and of others over mine? How can I serve a community rather than just my family? And I think automatically, the more these ideas or questions plague you, or in a certain sense, you entertain this, it automatically happens. I think the universe helps you, because today when I look back, I'm like, when did I become this? Like, when did I become this girl? Like, at times people are like, can you just not think about the impact on, I don't know, environment? And can you just have this? And can you just buy this dress? And I'm just like, yeah, when did I become this? And I don't know. I feel like somewhere I did nothing, apart from the choice. Yes, we all have a choice. And the more you be conscious of your choices, I think it creates this almost like this energetic pathway. So you automatically start mirroring experiences that vibe your energy or your frequency match. So I think, and thoughts have an energy, emotions have an energy. So I think the more you start dwelling in that state of interconnectedness, you attract opportunities, people, situations that match that. So I would definitely say dwelling in love, but I know that's a little vague, but trying to, and I think that's why for me, even veganism is a lifestyle. When people are like, oh, is it just a diet? And I'm like, no, it just has compassion at the core of it. Whether that's through, you want to express that through your food, whether that's you want to express that through the clothes you wear, whether that's through the products you use, skincare, makeup, whether it's through the luxury brands or not that you choose or not to consume. I think all of that, and like, I think it's never ending. the more we live life, and just especially living in a society like Bombay, a metropolitan city, there's so much consumption. So to be conscious of all your consumption, I think that's hard in itself. And I'm not saying you want to drive yourself mad, but to whatever extent, to whatever limit you can choose, I think exert that choice, exercise that right to choose, whether in the smallest way. Maybe it just starts with one meal a week that you're being conscious of. And like, I think that slowly has a domino effect. And the universe conspires, it helps you make this switch or transition that is not just for the benefit of you, but for all other sentient beings. So I definitely felt that. So, which is why I feel like yoga became more accessible over time. And I think another thing that actually my dog has taught me, and I playfully like call him Leela, and I think is just don't take life so seriously. So, and this is again also my dad to a certain extent. He just has always been someone who is not afraid of being called silly or humorous or, laughs very easily. And I think I didn't realize that just having that playful attitude to life can sometimes just help you not be burdened by, the past or the future so much. And you automatically can just dwell in the present moment because it's just playful. Even with meditation, actually, my Vipassana teacher, he always says Dhamma is far too important to be taken seriously. So if it's a serious practitioner, you've killed the essence of Dhamma. You don't want to do that. You kind of want to come with it with a playful attitude. Play with it, get curious, try different things, and I think that's when it became more accessible for me. If I had to think that, a 19-year-old me walked into a Vipassana thing and thought that this is it, I was like, am I crazy? I would have probably thought that's for my 60s or 70s, And I think I actually realized this is so much more juicy right now in my formative years when I actually implement these tools. So I think, yeah, definitely play with it. Don't take yourself too seriously. And try to lead a more compassionate life, try to be more conscious of your consumption. I think that for me definitely helps processing also denser emotions better and just darker sides of myself. I think when you lead a more compassionate lifestyle, sometimes it's not towards just other sentient beings. By a function of that, we start becoming more compassionate to ourselves, which is the crux of it. Because I think only when you have the relation you have with yourself is the blueprint for all other relationships. So if you are someone who is very controlling, someone who is very judgmental, it just shows how much you have all of that directed to yourself. So I think with time, when I say you be playful with yourself, I think I've had extremes, I've been on a complete raw cleanse and I'm like, this is it, this is the idea of me. And then I've also been that girl who's eaten all the junk and all, artificial flavored food and all of that and thought this is paradise, And I think, again, find that balance, coming back to that, finding that balance, neither nor, like, life is not to be experienced in extremes. We are supposed to experience it. So whatever is coming up for you, accept. And I think that being the first step towards healing or transformation, just accept what's coming up, and leading a compassionate lifestyle allows you to accept that, allows you to accept your darker sides, your demons, invite them in sometimes, have a cup of tea with them, and just study yourself better, because then you kind of, it mirrors out in your life with all your relationships, with all your interactions. So
yeah, beautiful. So dwell more in love rather than fear, right? And playfulness, right? I think that's so so it's such a natural thing, because as kids we are generally by playful, right? And I'm a banker, you're an investment banker. If you just go back to your work floors, smiling would be unique, right? Like you'll rarely find, like, people look for reasons, and if you're smiling, people ask you why you're smiling. That it's not
yeah,
natural.
absolutely.
And I think somewhere along adulthood, I think we just forget that it doesn't have to be that serious. It can be playful and light and still good, and doesn't mean that you shirk responsibility, but you don't take that burden on your shoulders, right? It's just easy.
Yeah. And when I say playful, even the joys and even the sorrows, like in office today, someone said something and I thought it was like I got offended, so I just started crying and they were like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, it's okay, I'll just tend to overexpress and overreact. And for a lot of them, that's just like, oh my God, she's crying. And like, we've held up like society, especially with men, I feel out here, like, they've always just been told to, we as women at least have our period cycles. So sort of given those pockets or those windows to release emotionally. But I think for men, they're just always so guards up, and it's unfamiliar for them to put their guards down. And I think again, we were not meant for that. Like, even as kids, they cry one moment, next moment they're laughing. Sometimes they're crying and laughing together, and it's okay.
And that's natural.
It is. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
probably take them to the doctor if they're not laughing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just forget that. And you're very right. I think as men, probably the liberty to even express their emotions is so much curtailed. And we talk a lot about women and our issues, but I think men's mental health is something that nobody just really considers, right? It's extremely difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
But going back to what you said, right, about having someone to, be a part of the journey with. And, I know how you talk a lot about your sangha and your tribe, and just want to, want you to take us through, how did you find your tribe? And if there's someone probably listening in who doesn't really, is in that state of transformation and it's probably not found their new tribe yet, what would you share with them?
For sure. So I think association is everything. And I remember very vividly that being the most courageous step I actually took. So when I earlier spoke on, like, you take those choices and you make those small decisions. Sometimes now when I look back, that was not a small change. I actually feel that was one of the biggest changes. And that's why a lot of resistance, a lot of hesitance. But I luckily had one friend, just one friend. And again, quality over quantity always. But that one friend assisted me to take that leap of faith and, cross from an investment banking to something that really stirs my heart and pulls my heart, and take that plunge. And of course, there were other factors like my parents being supportive, community at large. But I think what really matters, one, be true to yourself, like brutally honest. And again, I think that's a function of Vipassana. When you start observing yourself, these lies almost peel away like layers. Like, you think of the onion, and we sometimes have so much lies unknowingly, we've covered up so many layers. We don't know how to come back home to ourselves, So I think for me, Vipassana was that. And I remember for days and months, maybe just crying when I would go for a silent camp. And sometimes even on Arunachal Mountain, when I'd be chanting being Kirtan, being another really cathartic release for me. I didn't know what it was. There was nothing, there was no thought, there was no event that per se I was thinking of, but there were just tears and they were just coming out. And I think a part of that was just all these lies, that probably I just told myself over the years and convinced myself of. And I feel somewhere when we start being really honest with ourselves, genuinely very honest with ourselves, that takes courage. Yes, it can probably makes you feel really uncomfortable. But once that happens, trust me, it is again like a domino effect because you just attract. I think I've reached a stage in my life where I'm zero bullshit. Like I cannot tolerate it, and somehow universe hasn't put me in a situation where I've had to deal with that. And when I say lies, I just mean a lot of superficiality, a lot of saying something, doing something, feeling something, acting something. So a lot of disharmony. And I think, yeah, just tuning into yourself, checking in, having a practice every day, preferably, that allows you to check in with yourself. For me, that's yoga. It could be anything. It could look different for other people. Anything. It can just be even 5 simple deep breaths before going to bed, or first thing upon waking, checking into yourself. Or when you look at yourself in the mirror, asking yourself, how does Parmita feel today? Because we're so used to these platonic answers like, how are you? I'm so good. How have you been? And and well, that's fine. Not like I'm expecting you to have a big answer to a short elevator pitch or elevator hello, hi. But I think it's important for us to check in very frequently, and are here, I would say, as often as you can. And in that process of you checking in, you'll actually encourage and inspire other people around you. And maybe when it's time, those will come and be your friends, but you'll also lose a lot of friends. So I think that was, again, something that was very scary for me. I almost lost overnight, I would say, a lot of my friends due to just a dietary preference that then later on became a lifestyle preference. I just chose not to eat certain foods and food groups, not to drink, probably didn't prefer sleeping late. And just by virtue of just these 3, I had lost 99% of my friends. And they were like, okay, what do we do with you? Like, how do we hang? We didn't know how to connect. We didn't know how to interrelate. We didn't know how to relate. So where is a relationship if you don't know how to spend quality time with someone, apart from just partying, going out, whatever that may be. Again, no judgment there, but yeah, if you be true to yourself, and if it doesn't resonate, you have to take that courage to sort of disengage from those situations. And I think that's key. That's vital. That is, I would say that's the only step that matters. And then as if after I started following and started just being true to my voice and myself, it took time. But then in the process, the magic just happened. One day I look back and I realized now it's no longer even, oh, this is the person I'm holding on to, or this is the closest person. It's more like just a shared crucible of like-minded people, and the energy is palpable. So today, whoever walks into my space, I really feel very connected. And even who walk into our moon circle, you've experienced this as well. Maybe just a circle, or maybe just a couple of circles, and we already feel so interconnected and so easy to talk to, and easy to be with. And I think that's what we're eventually chasing from a sangha or a community or a family or a chosen family or friends, just the lightness of being. Again, tying it back to playfulness, and the people who are right for you will just make you feel light and effortless. It doesn't feel like so much effort, doesn't feel, and that's how you know that that's your truth. That's how you know you're living in alignment. So check into yourself. If there's heaviness, there's denseness, there's struggle, there's resistance, chances are your environment is not something that's assisting you and your purpose. And once you start doing things that assist you and make you feel lighter, and take the courage to act upon that, and like probably disengage from people, things that continue to make you feel that heaviness, there will be a time of being alone, maybe, in momentary period. For some people, they automatically feel a part of a bigger community or a tribe. For some people, no, they probably have to. And I think that again, that process of just sitting with yourself allows for that unlayering to happen, those lies to fall away, so that you can come in contact with your truth, can birth clarity. And then once that's happened, once that clarity of thought, vision, action is there, when those three come into harmony, I think it's again expressed in multifold in your reality. And I almost had, and I always say this, I almost had people when I shut investment banking and started Prana. I didn't know anything. No one in my family is in F&B. Nobody had any, like my mom had started a wellness space, but it was not a business. I wouldn't call her agenda was to purely help cancer patients, and then anyone with an ailment or a disease wanting to look at naturopathy. Profit or money wasn't even her agenda or her motive. So I feel like her vision was different, but it set the playground, it set the edifice for me to sort of go and like explore. But that being said, I feel the people who walked in were just angels. I had someone who sponsored to just, help me out with menu planning, someone sponsored to design my work. Magically, if I wanted a cause that I want to kind of support underprivileged women, I would get table mats, coasters, aprons, people reaching out to me that we want to help you with this. So when I'm saying the solutions almost just appeared, rather than me having to go there and find it, solutions in the form of people, in the form of ideas, in the form of Instagram was actually I've had a very healthy relationship with the tool and the medium, and actually connected with a lot of like-minded people on my journey through that. And I think that was again a representation or a reflection of me being honest. It was me sharing. There's nobody I've employed on Prana Kitchen to share my voice. It's just me sharing my voice out there authentically. And I feel that again sent out like this energetic vibration that was reverberated by the universe through people, through conversations. I would, on rough days, randomly receive a DM saying, keep doing the work you're doing, and it would really fill me up. And then I started realizing that, oh, okay, there are like 10 people seeing my story. There are not even one person walking into my space, but there are 10 people. Like, this is overwhelming. And I think that's when I started feeling connected to people, things, situation over than what I just saw. And that's when you start believing you're really supported. So community or sangha doesn't just come in physical form. Of course it does. That's where it begins. But I think where I now derive my deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment from is just this energetic family and soul fam, or whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it can just be an interaction, a conversation with a stranger, and it just makes you feel very light. And that's it. So yeah, that's my little bit on finding your sangha or community.
Yeah,
But
so
Buddha,
beautiful.
sangha came from the Buddha. That's where I picked it up from Vipassana. And
Yeah.
again, he always stressed upon, Buddha always stressed upon that you can't walk on this path alone. need friends and like-minded friends.
Yeah.
So no shame in asking for help, no shame in saying, I can't do this alone. And hopefully somewhere you find that energetic match and are able to reach out. But if not, definitely sign up. There's so much happening in our city now more than ever, or anywhere. I think, it's accessible for you to be a part of. Try and do dress rehearsal, try different communities. I think that's again important for you to see what's working for you. It sort of like helps you understand, oh, I like this, I like that, and then live that.
Build
And
on
you'll
it. Yeah.
automatically attract, you know, like-minded beings.
Yeah, beautiful. So, again, going back to that centering in your own awareness, understanding yourself, staying connected, attuned, and really understanding what are you feeling, right? And probably monitoring that over a period of time. And like you rightly said, right, like the book I'm writing is actually called You Are Fine, right? And it's obviously about how most of the time we are not. We say I'm fine and we move on. It's like almost like a courtesy question, and then we move on to other things. But the truth is that we're either always stressed, overwhelmed, strung out, burnt out, on the verge of it, and there's just so much emotional turmoil going on within us. And we're just fine stoic beings outside. And I don't think stoicism was meant in that way, right? It was
Yeah.
the other way, that you really are able to work through everything and are able to be equanimous no matter what happens. But I think we just turned it around into a pretense. But I think that's beautiful in terms of really just being true to yourself and attracting the right family wherein it's effortless, right? I think a lot of time, most of us probably were people pleasers. For us, putting in that effort is the only way we know how to hold a relationship, right? Or going that extra mile. So learning that lightness of being and playfulness and just being effortlessly at ease at yourself and knowing that it'll happen. I think that was what I took away from it. Beautiful. So I think I just have one more question before we go into the rapid fire, right? So you first started out as a practitioner of yoga and are now teaching yoga. Just want to understand, how has that transition been, and how do you continue deepening your learning? Because it's an endless oasis there as well, right? So
Absolutely. Wow, this question. It always makes me still pinch myself and be like, really, teacher? And I've always felt unfamiliar with that title, I feel, because it comes with, again, a certain sense of responsibility. And I'm someone like, I just want to play. I'm a child. I'm a student of the earth. But student first, always, and teacher later. I never actually intended to teach yoga. Yoga was a journey I stumbled upon when I had my own health conditions. I would just fall, growing up, dust allergy, a lot of cough, and a lot of like frequently fall sick. And I remember once when I was really unwell, my dad being like, "We need to go to the doctor," and I was like, okay. And we went to the doctor, and I came back, and he's prescribed me a lot of medication, and it just didn't feel right intuitively. I'm like, I just don't want to do this. I'm just going to chew on my wheatgrass, and I'm going to just do my kriyas, and I'll hopefully be fine in the morning. I'll sunbathe and I'm done. And I think that's when my dad was like, okay, it's fine for you to choose not to have this, but you need to have at least some deeper understanding of this. And that's when he actually pushed me. He did the same diploma in yogic sciences from Kevalya Dham earlier on in his journey. And he definitely pushed me to do it. And he said, you just need to have a better understanding of your body and have a connection with your breath, because again, that's your life force. And health is such a function of that. And again, the most subtlest things are the most undervalued. When we think of health, we think of this physical, tangible body. And we think, oh, we have to rectify it. 90% of the people who come to my yoga class, can I headstand? Can I do this? And I think that's where I feel I still struggle to be called a teacher, because one thing is I don't want yoga to be misrepresented. At least that's something my teachers in school, I was fortunate to have yoga as a subject in my school from a very young age. Miss Sanjana, Miss Pardiwala, and they took us to Mother's Ashram every year as yoga school camp. And I think one thing I learned is like, yoga should not be diluted, and that's something I was also reiterated in Kevalya Dham by Swamiji. And that's the one thing that, it should not be diluted. And I feel that's where people think that yoga begins and ends at asana. And they don't realize that's just a limb. That's the first limb. It's the most tiniest aspect of it, And Even people who come in, I just want to do that. I have a back problem. I have this problem. Not realizing the energetics of it. If you have a back problem, you have a shoulder problem, there's an emotional imbalance, there's an energetic imbalance. And only when those are rectified, if you can't backbend, there's so much fear, there's so much dwelling in the past. Your heart is closed. If you can't forward fold, there's not that much humility, there's too much ego, there's too much identification with your sense of I. And I feel these are things that as a yoga teacher, I can't just tell you and it's not going to just go away, right? There's a certain level of personal effort that you, as an ardent student, as a practitioner, have to employ. And there's time that's going to allow for those things to unravel. So I think that's particularly why growing up, I found yoga a very personal practice. And I think it almost felt like my sadhana, my prayer. I'm not religious, but for me, my yoga is my religion. And this Saint Teresa of Avila, I think she's an 18th century mystic. She described prayer as a frequent conversation held with the beloved. And I think that's when I realized like this is something that is so magical, so mystical, and so intimate to me. How can I share this with anybody else? How can it be of any use to anybody else? Like, this is me, this is the problems I am dealing with. How do I help somebody else? I don't know if someone else is having a problem. I go through a breakup, I get on my mat, I cry, I do child's pose, I do some back bending, I do bhujangasana. I'll just do it. My body is intuitively just responding to these problems with these solutions. I was like, that may not apply to somebody else. It's not just an asana, it's a sacred geometry. It's creating a certain energetic field, force field that releases certain blockages that probably are ailing me, may not be somebody else. I think that was my mind and like thought process for not teaching. It was never, I want to keep this knowledge to myself or any of that. It was more, I don't think I'm equipped to share this, and I don't know if this is a useful piece of equipment. Until obviously much later on, much after I lost my brother, much after a lot of other life challenges, I actually looked at myself and I'm like, yes, I'm different. I acknowledge that I'm different from a lot of people. But what has helped me claim my uniqueness? And I think that's where yoga stepped in. That's where I realized it really helped me feel at peace with myself, even though I wasn't just a product of what I was seeing mass produced in my society. And that's when I felt a lot of people today, just with the amount of stress, the lifestyles, the comparisons, the Instagram as well. Like I said, I have a very healthy relation with it, but I've seen a lot of people, compare and go down this whole mental health psychosis of sorts. Just comparing and just feeling not enough and not adequate enough. And I feel that's where I felt yoga was a very effective tool. Also with self-image issues, doubt, self-esteem. So that's when I decided that actually I want to share these gifts, and with whoever is willing to show up at class, at practice. And now with time, I would say it's definitely the pandemic made it very apparent for a lot of us that health is something that cannot be put on second gear. It cannot be just kept in the back seat and kept that, oh, okay, as far as I have no disease, I'm healthy. It's not that. People understood the value of life, the sense of urgency we want to give to feeling radiantly alive, to feeling our best, because we're not promised tomorrow. And I think that's where I feel I started feeling more of value, my gifts of more value, because I saw that reflected in society. And that's been my journey as a yoga teacher. I still cringe when I have to say that, and also because there are shoes that are so big to be filled. When I think of teacher and the teachers that I have met on this path, truly been graced and blessed. And I feel when you put somebody in that position as a yoga teacher, it's just the value and the respect I hold for that. But yeah, a lot of key values that come out of that, again, as a yoga teacher, humility, grace, things that I don't think someone can, again, just teach you. When you come, it's like the guru finds you. It helps you from going from good to ru, from darkness to light. So when you're in that state, when the fruit is ripe enough, it falls off from the tree, you will find your teacher, you will find your guru in whatever form, and it'll change. Maybe you don't have that same teacher all through, but I think that's been my journey. I've had lots of different teachers, and I've had my own coming back to my own grounding practice, because that's something, like I said, it's my prayer time, it's my sadhana. So that's something I don't compromise on at all, even if I'm a teacher. In fact, I'll cut out on classes, but I can't pour from an empty cup. So definitely that's something I keep coming back to work on myself, to try out new experiences. And yeah, dress rehearsal always, the playful attitude always. Best to say I don't know it and try on a new skill, a new style. So I think for me, that's always been something that's very enticing, enigmatic. But I think at the heart of it, definitely sharing yoga in a practice that sounds true to me, and putting more emphasis on things apart from just the body. So when people come in and I'm like, build a relation with your breath, that is yoga. Like, sit with yourself, that is yoga. Sit in silence, watch the sunset, that is yoga. So like you rightly said, in Kaivalya Dham, they said yoga is a 24-hour thing. And when you think of that, you're like, am I supposed to do yoga 24 hours? That's too much responsibility. But it almost is, it becomes effortless, and at some point, I'm not saying 24 hours, but at least it starts the moment you get off the mat. It's again, the mat and the time on your mat is like weight training, so that it can become an involuntary action in times of genuine stress. When you are experiencing life and there's stress, and you're able to manipulate your breath and you're able to tell your mind, okay, there is challenge, there is physical discomfort, but I'm okay. And that's what we're doing in the pose. When we say Sthira Sukhamasana, or when we say Prayatna Shaitilya Ananta Samapatti, when we're talking these sutras, we're actually living it in those moments on the mat. We're actually telling and training our mind that breathe through it all, because that's what's creating neuroplasticity. That's what's hacking into your nervous system and telling your mind that, yeah, I am experiencing, this hurts, but at the same time, I'm breathing, and that is where the magic lies. That is yoga. So I think for me, just sharing that subtle, simple knowledge for those people who want that and want to not just receive it through the mind, but experience it with me, is what I like to offer. So most of my energy and time and commitment goes into my group classes. Some of it goes into my privates.
Beautiful, beautiful. What you shared reminded me of another guest we had on the podcast, Raki Suryavanshi, another yoga teacher. And, one thing that she said stood out to me, and what you were also saying, right? That yoga comes before all of us, right? That is the science of it, or the study of it, that is the topmost priority, right? As teachers, as anybody, practitioners, I think having that humility to put that above all of us, because that's where we derive our learnings and inspiration from, right? And like you rightly said, I think for me as well, because I think I've been meditating for almost 5 years now, and I started an asana practice just last 2 years, right? So people usually ask me saying, what, you say you're a practitioner of yoga, but you don't know asanas and you can't do a headstand. And I'm like, there's just so many different layers to it that I by chance had it, because I found yoga through meditation. But it's just so beautiful, because I think it's very subtle the way it works on us, right? And like you rightly said, you probably recognize the benefits of yoga when you're in that storm, and you suddenly say, hey, I'm a different person. Like I felt that during the pandemic, that the whole world was raging up in a storm, and I was calm, peach. Like I was like, okay, this is happening, all right. It gives me more time for my practice. And you don't realize, and otherwise I would have been an anxious, nervous control freak, because that's who I was just 4 years ago. And you recognize all of those things when you are suddenly put to test. And like you rightly said, that's what we're learning through those asanas, right? How do you breathe through it? Like I think one of the only things that my yoga teacher, even now, she says, right? She looks at my face and she's like, breathe. You're holding your breath, you're not even breathing. And that's all we need to know, that, even when your body is twisted into a crisis, can you remember to breathe at that moment? Because that'll pass. And, you can just anchor yourself to the breath and stay grounded.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love the way you put that.
Beautiful. All right. Shall we go into our rapid fire? Are you ready for it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. We'll start with the easy ones first. Morning person or night person?
Morning.
Morning. Okay. Punctual or always behind schedule?
I would say I'm punctual for like a class. Like I'm very disciplined, but then I also like to go with the flow. So if not with classes, but barring classes, if there are any other schedules or appointments for whatever reason, I'm not able to make it on time, or they get cancelled, or then I would say I'm more free flowing. easy to be changed. But for classes, if there's that sense of discipline is there for that. But for others, I would say I'm flowing impromptu with whatever life wants to throw in me.
Lovely. Okay. Books, movies, or podcast?
Books, I think. Yeah, books. Yeah.
So, if you had to pick your top 3 books, which probably transformed your life, what would they be?
Very tough.
Okay, you can make 3, 5.
Whatever just comes to me. Top 3 puts the pressure. It's all about being light and playful.
Okay.
I would say definitely what changed my life was Sun Food Diet Success System. It is by David Wolf, a raw foodist. I also would say The 40 Rules of Love by Elif Shafak. I really enjoyed that book. Fiction, but also a lot of deep philosophical layering in that. And maybe my experiments with truth, with Gandhi's autobiography, Gandhiji's autobiography.
Lovely. Okay. Role models you look up to, and what qualities in them do you admire?
Again, I think everyone has something beautiful, and if and not as well, we all are shades of grey. But I definitely feel today the person I am is a lot to do with my family. So they are my closest, most influential role models. That being said, my parents for sure. So I think both of them have today whatever I am, I think is a product of that. And if I'm proud to be this person, it's definitely their doing. So I think, yeah, both have taught me a lot in different aspects. Dad's been very disciplined, gone to a military training school, so a certain sense of posture is always maintained. And that it makes me realize having a certain posture, again, changes the energetics, you know, how you show up, how you talk, how you receive, how you also attract. So I think that's where I get, mom is all heart, all play, all love. Again, whatever you do, it has to have the undercurrent of love. And I think that's mom for me. So lots of values, lots of nuggets. Just to be living with them is all grace. And again, living with my grandparents, being brought up with their love and nurtured with their love. I think that's where, when someone asks me, what are you most proud to be Indian? I think that's my biggest wealth, you know, just having this deep sense of belonging and family, whether I'm blessed to have it as family, but if not, then chosen family. But yeah, I think that's those are my role models.
Beautiful. One word to describe the pandemic for you.
Downtime with fam. I actually was quite happy with that one.
That's nice. Anything that's non-negotiable in your daily routine, things that you just have to do?
Like I said, I'm more or less free-flowing as a person, but definitely checking in with myself. So prayer for me is my yoga or any form of like just tuning in, whether it's journaling, whether it's sitting in silence, any form of that. Also playing with my puppy now that I'm a pet mom. I think selfless service is that. So definitely. So sorry about this. So yeah, definitely playing with my puppy is
showing up on time. Right.
Yeah.
Lovely. All right. One thing you wish your younger self knew.
It's a good one. One thing I wish. It's all temporary. It's all transient. Yeah. Not to hold on to everything that happens in life, everything that somebody says or that you hear. Don't judge your own actions like as though, you know, it's do or die, 100 or 0. I think, yeah, just learning to sit in the middle at times and also getting comfortable with the discomfort, because it's all transient. You know, we can only understand life when we understand loss, and we can only celebrate life when we learn to accept loss and suffering. So they both are sort of flip sides of the same coin. So if I just tell myself to embrace change, and I know that's still a toughie for me, and human conditioning naturally to be like resist change and fear it, but I think that's changing. I think that's what I'm trying to change over time. The resistance to the fears that come up, and tapping into like faith a lot more often and surrendering to a higher plan, to a higher purpose.
Lovely. That was actually going to be my next question. We always interview work in progress humans. So our question always is that what are you working towards? What is Parmita 2.0?
2.0, I think definitely it's this faith over fear, and letting go of control, peaceful resignation. I think somewhere the older I grow, the more I think I know is the only thing I know is that something higher is taking care. And it's more than what meets my eyes. All the study of sound, energy, medicine, all of that just reaffirms my belief that, like I said, we think asana is just the body. It's just the beginning, right? The breath, the most subtle things are actually the most profound. So what we can't see is actually what's governing our life and the direction of our life. So trust that it has something best in your highest good plan for you. Yeah.
Right. One tip that you'll give for someone who's just beginning on their journey of yoga?
It's not just asanas. And while it's great if you can do headstands and handstands and definitely post it, share it, shout it out, but it's not just that. It's just the beginning. So please continuing practicing, and don't think that when you've achieved that headstand, I've become a yogi. No, you'll know it. You'll feel it when you're progressing on the path.
Yeah, or digressing and realize they need to come back. I think that's how I realized my path when the sadhana went off. But lovely. Okay, last question. If there's one takeaway that you want audience listening into us to take from this conversation, what would that be?
Oh, this has been so lovely. How do I give you just one?
Okay, give me a couple.
I liked what you said about being equanimous. I think that's something that I just spoke about, sitting in the middle, and also sometimes when life throws both shades, try to cultivate tools, practices, rituals with your community, by yourself, whatever way to achieve that equanimous state. And I think that's been a byproduct of my lifestyle. I would say tuning into myself a lot, doing a lot of yoga, eating clean, or journaling, reflecting, meditating, moving with awareness. All of that has actually helped me just play this funny thing called life better. Again, there's no right or wrong in the larger scheme of things. But yeah, I think that for sure was one of, the highlights. And play. When people say practice, there's a certain sense of seriousness to it. So I'm like, just play. That's definitely someone who's tuning into this. It's okay if you make mistakes. And a friend recently was just like, life is to be experienced, so live it. Sometimes it'll take you on that roller coaster high, sometimes on the down low, and somewhere in between, hopefully you figure out how to ride the wave. So yeah.
So beautiful. Thank you so much. I can keep going on, but
it was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for
being here. And all the best, and keep doing this. I think it's so inspiring, not just for people, your listeners, but also people like me at the receiving end. I feel so humbled and so inspired, and just so many creative new ways of sharing your gifts. And I think that's beautiful. And thank you for having me here. And looking forward to seeing you soon. And I hope Mysore gives you all the yogic wisdom. You're in the land. So whatever you're seeking, I hope it finds you super soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise. See you.